because I'm tired of hearing, oh, they made a mistake. Well, guess what? That mistake may cost somebody their job. That mistake may cost somebody their home. That mistake may cost somebody actually being able to still have their child. And so if you care about U.S. citizens, we know how y'all feel about immigrants, but if you care about U.S. citizens, I don't understand why this would be debatable, because if there's anybody that we're fighting for, all supposed to be fighting for, it should be U.S. citizens. In fact, it's U.S. citizens that are the ones that send us here.
Representative Jasmine Crockett's speech wasn't just another showdown in Congress. She stood up and said what so many people are afraid to say out loud, that mistakes made by law enforcement or federal agencies aren't harmless. They aren't clerical errors. They have consequences.
I'd like to first associate the gentle lady's, my remarks with the gentle lady's remarks, because some things just should not be debatable. And one of the things that we know is that the Constitution is really supposed to be a guiding light. And the reason that we're having to do amendments like this one and the other one and talk about things such as due process and the Constitution is because we could actually avoid maybe detaining or sending away U.S. citizens if we just gave them their due process rights. Because I'm tired of hearing, oh, they made a mistake. Well, guess what? That mistake may cost somebody their job. That mistake may cost somebody their home. That mistake may cost somebody actually being able to still have their child, because authorities may be called because that person is now not showing up to pick up their child. Or some people don't have the privilege of having a salaried job where whether they show up or not, they're still going to get paid. Some people need to be at work. And so if you care about U.S. citizens, we know how y'all feel about immigrants, but if you care about U.S. citizens, I don't understand why this would be debatable, because if there's anybody that we're fighting for, all supposed to be fighting for, it should be U.S. citizens. In fact, it's U.S. citizens that are the ones that send us here, not Donald Trump. So with that, we should be looking out. We should have their back, and we should say, as the federal government, we will not do things that are directly going to disenfranchise our citizens. And that's exactly what this is. But if we just followed the Constitution and gave people their due process rights, then maybe they could show up and prevent some of these mistakes. And maybe these mistakes that maybe seem so small to y'all because maybe the people that are being targeted have a little bit more melanin. So maybe we don't care about the mistakes that happen with some of those folk. I don't really understand. But I'm tired. And frankly, I think y'all should be tired too. Because I think no matter what district you come from, if you were to survey your district, there is no one in your district that would say that we should spend money on ICE, immigration and customs enforcement, to detain or deport, which you can't even deport, detain and kidnap, or detain and whatever, unlawfully restrain a U.S. citizen. Not anyone in your district would actually support that. I would put money on it. And so this absolutely should be a no-brainer. And I thank you to the gentle lady from the state of Washington for proposing just common sense, which seems like it is not so common nowadays. I will yield.
When a U.S. citizen is wrongfully detained, when someone is taken off the street without proper due process, it's not just an inconvenience. It can cost a person their job, their home, their family, even their dignity. Crockett was demanding that we see the humanity behind the paperwork, that every mistake is a life disrupted. And this is exactly what due process is meant to prevent. It's written into the Constitution because the founders understood something timeless. Power without restraint leads to injustice. Government can only remain legitimate if it's bound by law, by fairness, and by accountability. When Crockett says she's tired of hearing they made a mistake, she's not being emotional. She's being constitutional. She's calling attention to how easily those in power can trample rights when they stop seeing the people they serve as human beings. Crockett also drew a line that's often blurred in modern politics: the difference between protecting citizens and weaponizing enforcement. She challenged the hypocrisy of those who claim to stand for law and order while ignoring the Constitution's command for due process. If law and order are real values, they have to apply to everyone, not just the powerful, not just those who look a certain way, and not just when it's politically convenient. When she said that some of these mistakes might seem small because the people being targeted have a little more melanin, she named something uncomfortable but true. Disparities in policing, immigration enforcement, and wrongful detentions disproportionately impact people of color, and pretending otherwise doesn't make it less real. Crockett's frustration came from a place of truth. We can't keep excusing systemic bias as administrative error. And that's why her amendment matters. It's not just about immigration or ICE or detentions. It's about whether America still believes in its own promises. Crockett's argument was simple but profound. If we say we care about U.S. citizens, if we say we're defenders of liberty, then we cannot tolerate government agencies detaining Americans without due process. It's not partisan. It's not even debatable. It's the bare minimum standard of a functioning democracy. But this hearing also revealed something deeper: how much the conversation has shifted in Washington. When basic constitutional protections become controversial, it shows how far we've drifted from common sense. Crockett thanked her colleague from Washington State for introducing what she called common sense, and she's right. We've reached a point where fairness itself feels like a radical idea. What she's really asking America to consider is this: if due process isn't guaranteed for everyone, it's guaranteed for no one. If we allow the government to detain even one innocent citizen without cause, that precedent can be used against anyone. That's not fear-mongering. That's history. Every erosion of liberty begins with a group that was easy to target and ends with a system that can target anyone. And so, Crockett's message is not just to her colleagues in Congress, it's to us. We can't afford to tune out these hearings. We can't leave the defense of civil rights to lawyers and legislators alone. The Constitution belongs to the people, and it only works when the people insist on its protection. So here's what you can do. Pay attention to how your representatives vote on due process, detention, and enforcement policies. Speak up when you see rights being sidelined for political convenience. Demand accountability when agencies cross the line. Because no American, regardless of race, background, or belief, should ever have to beg for the rights they were born with. Jasmine Crockett is doing what oversight is supposed to look like, reminding Congress that the Constitution is not optional. She's not asking for special treatment. She's asking that we live up to the principles we claim to represent. In a time when fear and division dominate the headlines, it's refreshing and necessary to hear a lawmaker stand up and say, we can't afford to let mistakes become policy. We can't afford to forget what justice actually means. Due process isn't paperwork. It's the difference between freedom and abuse of power. And it's time we all got as tired as Jasmine Crockett, tired enough to demand better.